Hello, A Knife's Tale here, bringing you a knife summary of a knife I've already done a full review on. This is the Demko AD 20.5. This particular variant is in Ultim, as you can see with the piss color, and 20 CV. It's made in Taiwan for Demko Knives, which is a USA custom maker, and the designer of many a strong lock for previously Cold Steel and now themselves. The Triad lock, the Shark lock, the Scorpion lock, all Demko. And this knife does scream Demko. It has a lot of the stylings of his knives. It's on bearings. It runs on the Shark lock here. This is, you pull back and slightly up to release the blade. There's a spring in there. And you're basically just working off of the tension of the humps. Now, the detent is not really a detent, it's mushy, but the sound when you slap it open is very unique and very enjoyable, and it's not at all hard to do to successfully deploy. And it slaps and clicks and clacks all the way there. Finger safe operation because of that. Now, all that said, this is a very popular knife. I don't like this knife. I bought it because it was on sale, and I got a really good deal on this thing. This thing was like $125 when I bought it. With the slicer grind, let's just double check blade length for you. 3 1/8. Overall, 7 5/8. That should do for that. It was like $125, which is pretty great because that's normally around where they start with the base models of these things in other cheaper FRN plastic and D2 or AUS 10. So yeah, I couldn't pass that up. It's 20 CV, so that seemed like a pretty good deal to me. But while I like the knife, I like the lock. I like the lock. The lock's cool. I think there are a few ways, maybe making some of these edges sharper, that you could possibly get a little bit more of a detent, particularly that edge, because that's the one that you interact with when you open the thing. But while I like the lock and think that's done pretty well, and like the sounds it makes, the rest of the knife, I think, is a miss. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, yeah, let's start here. I don't like the pivot. I don't like the stamped logoed pivot when it just says a bunch of words. If you got a distinctive logo, that's one thing, but you already got your logo right here. There's your Demko logo. Get rid of all that. That's personal opinion. But moving down, starting with the clip, I hate the clip. The clip literally cants down in the front. It is a miserable pain in the butt getting into the pocket, and on this sharper diamond texture, it will start to tear up your pants. The clip is hideous, and frankly, not all that functional. Not on this one, at least. And if you want to move the clip to the other side, you gotta... it comes with another clip, but you gotta replace the clip because it does not just flip. That's not really a problem. Moving on from the clip, while I actually like the diamond texturing, the actual ergos are, not so great. It's not uncomfortable by any means. Back here, my hands fit. But these are kind of... they're not chamfered edges, they're just kind of slightly rounded, so that it all feels hard and boxy. Which, again, for a cheap knife, that would be okay. This knife is a little bit beyond that, but it's not terrible, but it is very, prescriptive. You're stuck here. This is where you live. You try to do this and you're kind of on a hump, and you try to do this and you're kind of on a very extreme angle. Let's call it that. And then you have this forward choil that Demko seems to like doing on a lot of his knives. I've seen this on a lot of cold steels and everything. He puts this half choil thing, and personally, I think this needs to stop. This needs to stop being a thing that any company does. Half choils are not really good. You either go for choil or you don't go for choil. You either push this thing up to the front, or maybe you give a little more blade edge, if you could possibly do that, which you frankly probably could bring that blade edge back to there and just have the tang sit in there. That might be interesting. This tang does work as a stop pin, but I wonder if they could move it up a little bit. I don't know. I'll leave that to people who can engineer stuff better than I can. But simply put, this half choil, I don't feel safe in that. Look at where I'm on the edge, and I'm as far back as I can get, and it's also not super comfortable. It's got sharp edges here on the inside, and it's blocky. It's not super comfortable. I can't really feel safe gripping into it because I feel like I'm going to roll right into that. You can sort of, I guess, first knuckle it and be okay. But, So the ergos in that, I don't like. The second and third, I guess, beside the clip, is the third reason that I'm not a super fan of this knife is the blade. The blade shape's nice. This is the slicer grind. I don't know why in the world they call it that, because this is not slicey. Mine didn't come all that sharp, but it's also very, very thick behind the edge. And that makes sense for the original AD20, because it's a big, heavy-duty knife. It's much larger, it's much thicker. Even the slims are thicker. They're just big, heavy-duty, hard-use knife that you can beat into something. This knife is trying to be a pocketable, everyday, slim EDC, right? I mean, it's quite thin. This is not a particularly thick knife. But behind the edge, this thing is like 23 thousandths, 24 thousandths or something like that, or quickly gets there, and it gets super thick, super fast. It just does not really perform that well. And for the, light, easy choice EDC that I'd want this knife for, I guess if you're looking for a small, heavy-duty, hard-use knife, okay. If you want. I don't know. I just don't know what this knife is supposed to be trying to be doing. I think it needs to be redesigned around the lock a little bit. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion because these are popular knives, but that's kind of how I feel. I also just will say that I'm not super impressed with the edge that came on this thing. It'll cut kind of, but I mean I can push into it and just nothing. And I've used this knife, but it came that way. It has come that way. I don't know what else to say. It just feels like a knife that's trying to do too many things, or be things that it can't. I guess the ultimate takeaway is sometimes when you take a large knife and scale it down for I don't know, for people who want a smaller one. Medford does it with some, like the Slim Midi is a smaller one of the Medford Marauder. This knife of the original AD20, the .5, is a smaller version. There are knives out there that people have taken larger original versions of and slimmed down, and you have to take certain things into consideration when you do that. Lock bar axis change, thickness changes, functional of the blade, ergos, they need to be not just a one-to-one scale down. They need to be a not A, but they need to be compensated for, is what I'm trying to say, and I just don't think they quite hit it with this one. Which is a shame, because it's a fun, cool knife, and it's a very popular knife, but I don't know. It's just never really thrilled me. As I said, I have a full review of this thing, and I even have a comparison of this thing versus the Arcade, which also uses the same lock, but made by Flytanium. And maybe I'll link them. I don't know. But that's all I have to say about this. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's not what I would pick for just an everyday grab and go. Unfortunately. Is what it is, right? That's all from me. See you in the next one.